If anybody needs translation, we have devices in the back.
Are you going to answer the post-flow questions at the end, or like consider the time? And then we'll answer them once we finish the video.
I mean, it depends, because some things I'll just... like trouble with algebra when they put numbers and letters together. Let's begin. What? Oh, it's time? Okay. Welcome everybody. We are having our first CGB Talks, and with me I have Mr. Jamie Regan and Ms. Angela Daza. I am Mr. Joe, and we are here from CGB having this conversation. The idea is that we're building this interaction where we're going to be sharing different things. Parents are here, parents are at home, and if you have any questions, please write them down on the chat and we'll try to answer them throughout the conversation. So today, and before we begin, we need to set up some things. So the first thing is what to expect. Let's kindle hope. You know, teenagers and those years will eventually pass. That won't have to be like an eternal suffering or situation. Let's have hope behind us and let's work towards that. The other one is being uncomfortable is okay. We don't have to be comfortable about everything. You were not, I'll bring you back to when you had conversations with your parents about sex, sexuality, alcohol. Those things are uncomfortable by nature. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Frankness in our interaction, we can be very frank and ask anything that we want to ask because we're here to help in any way that we can. Let's be empathetic and kind in our conversation because we do not know what other families are living through. We do not know what they're going through. We do not know if there is a situation that they need assistance with, and it's very difficult when you start a conversation, but I would do this, or I would do that. That's not the purpose of this environment, but to make it a very humane environment where we can share everything that we are going through. Non-judgmental conversations, no house glasses, and especially when you go into your own home, say, my child will never drink. My child will never be presented with these things. I will never, no. Let's try and bring that down. And questions can be difficult, so we're going to be submitting them either via post-it or via chat. And in the chat room, we are encouraging you, please do not use your personal information. Please do not use your children's information. We are trying to keep them safe, and some things are going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. So the first thing that I want to say is once upon a time. If we look at the board, what do you see? You see basically you were 116. We were all 116, right? How were you when you were 16? And now we're so quick to judge. And now we say, oh, I would never. How were you with your parents? Or what was it that you did not do or that you did that you wanted to do? So there were many things that we went through. So some of us had the punk hair, some of us had some colored hair, some of us were rebels in our own way or not. But we were definitely 16 once, or 15 or 14, and it's important to understand. Another thing that why are we open to the conversation regarding all teenagers or people that are growing up in their teenage years is basically because not all of them are going through the same thing at the same time. So it's impossible to say, okay, oh no, my child has not gone through this. Okay, that's fine. Every home, every child will have a different need, and that is okay. So, yeah. We'll go to, we're going to talk about some biological truths. And here I'm going to tell you something very interesting. The brain does not fully function, finish maturing till we are about 25. 25 years old. By then, most people finished university. They chose a career. Maybe some people made mistakes along the way. But the idea is to understand what happens to the brain. And if you just do this for the audience members here, can you do this? Do this. Come on, there you go. Basically, this would be your amygdala, which is a part in the brain which measures flight, fight, risk. You know, your instinct to survive is right here. And then the prefrontal cortex, which would be this, which is the, you know, here in your brain, does not finish maturing till you're 25. So all the decision making, all the risk calculations, all the actual reasoning behind doing something won't be fully developed till we're 25. And sometimes we expect our 16, 15-year-olds to be more than they can actually be. And they are allowed to navigate the world. They are allowed to make mistakes. They are allowed to do that, especially at that age, because if not, then they'll make them when they're older, okay? And the consequences will be a lot more serious. So I'll remind you, if you come up with questions and you want to do that, just we raise our hand and somebody will pick up those questions for you, okay? And then a developing brain, I think I'm very lucky, and for those people that are or grew up in the 80s, at least we did not have anybody filming the things that we were doing. We had no competition regarding, what we posted on social media. We did not have any influencers in our lives that were guiding the way that we were deciding to what to wear, who to date, how to go, what to see. So those things are important to understand, because our children are living through situations that we will never understand fully. There are trends that we will never understand fully, but there are things that we can always do. Open communication, unconditional love. Those things won't change, and if we create those channels in communication, then we can try to understand what they're going through. Because what we're all here for is children. What we all want your children to be is healthy, safe, and alive. And remember that when you say, oh no, that's never going to happen. No. Safe and alive. Those things are the most important. Yeah? So caregiving is overwhelming. Parents are tired. You don't like your children sometimes, and that's okay. You don't like your spouses sometimes, and that's okay too. But at the end, you cannot give up. You do not have the choice of, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah? It is not a thing that you can give up. It's something, raising a child is a long-term commitment. And in that sense, it is, you get to be exhausted. You get to say you're exhausted, but you can't give up. You're not allowed. I'm sorry, that's illegal. You can't give up. And teachers, we need you. We are exhausted as well, in the sense that it is a different world from what we grew up in. So we need you. We need to row that boat. You on one side, we're rowing on the other, but we need to go to the same place, because otherwise we'll go crazy. Okay? We need to all collaborate, and we need to be on the same page. And being a teenager is difficult. You have to compete with these things, the influence. I was talking to a child yesterday who was telling me how they would set up pictures to set up a post and see how many likes they had. I can't imagine that. That is exhausting. That is absolutely exhausting, having to, okay, this is a meal or whatever, and we're taking a picture of it. Or we all go to concerts, and what we see people filming the concert still living the situation. So it is important for us to understand that we won't get fully what they're doing, but we need to open communication patterns. So for the next part, we'll start with Mr. Regan. Go ahead.
Hi everybody, good morning, and good morning to people online as well. When this session was conceived, one of the challenges that we were thinking of is how hard it can be for parents who have young people that are 16 or 17 years old. There are difficulties and challenges at all areas of adolescence, at all ages of adolescence for parents. A particularly tricky one can be when your young people are 16 or 17, because they're in that in-between age where some things start to become legal for them and some things are still illegal for them. And whilst they're pushing the boundaries and they're experimenting with things, it can be really difficult for parents to know when to say yes to things, when to say no to things, when to get involved and to be asking questions, and when to take a step back. So just as a little starter activity, thinking about that, I'd like to do a little activity for you to see if you know what things are legal and illegal for young people that are 16 or 17 in Colombia. So if the people that are in the room want to put their hands up, so I'm going to say either legal or illegal. And if I say legal and you think the thing is legal, put your hand up. If you think it's illegal, you can put your hand up. If people at home want to participate, they can write legal or illegal in the chats for each one, okay? So the first one is obtain a driving license. Put your hand up if you think that that's legal for young people that are 16 or 17 in Colombia. Okay, put your hand up if you think it's illegal. Okay. Yeah, that one's legal. Okay, that one's legal.
We're learning. It's good, it's good.
The next one is vote in national elections. Hands up if you think that's legal. Hands up if you think it's illegal. Okay, yep, that one's illegal.
Everybody got that right, good.
Buy and consume alcohol. Hands up if you think that is legal. Hands up if you think it's illegal. Okay, yeah, you're all getting used to this now. Yeah, that one is illegal. You'll all be happy to know. Next one, engage in consensual sexual activity where there is no power imbalance. Hands up if you think that that one is legal. Hands up if you think it's illegal. Okay, yeah, that's legal. Buy and consume tobacco or electronic cigarettes. Hands up if you think that's legal. Hands up if you think it's illegal. Okay, good. You've all got very good legal knowledge. I'm very impressed. Have a job that doesn't require night shifts or hazardous conditions. Hands up if you think that's legal. Hands up if you think it's illegal. Okay, that one's legal. Okay, and that was the last one you'll be glad to know, but very, very impressed with your knowledge there. The idea wasn't really to test your knowledge, though. It was to have a think about that thing that I mentioned, that 16 and 17 is a difficult age. Some of those things on there are legal from before the age of 16 as well. Okay, and so when you have adolescents living in your house, it can be really difficult. One of the most difficult things for parents is underage drinking. It's by no means the only thing that you will have to contend with, but it's one that's very common, that we sometimes have issues relating to arriving on our desks as a school, and we want to think about how we can help with formative experiences in school, but also having conversations with all of you as well to think about what we can all do to work in partnership together as a community to help you, to help your children. And so here are some risks of underage drinking. I'm sure you'll be familiar with them. What we don't want to do in this is to make you all think that we're morally outraged by things that happen when young people are under the age of 18 and they're experimenting with things. We want your children to be able to make informed decisions about when they're going to do things and when they're going to try things. And I think if I were to give you all one piece of advice, I'm going to give you lots of pieces of advice, but if I were to give you one piece of advice, it's to be as open as possible with your young people, and to help them to feel comfortable, to come to you with questions, and not fear that you're going to bite their heads off, okay? And so, again, you might be really familiar with some of these risk factors of underage drinking. Genetics, like this is a really vital factor for all of you. If you know that in your families you have histories of addiction, it's really important to speak to your children about that. It's more common than we all might think, but if you have parents or relatives yourselves that have struggled with drink or with drugs, I think it's important to have conversations with your children about that through genetic factors, but also maybe through environmental and social factors, that can lead to your child having a higher risk of underage drinking, or of developing problems themselves. Stress, various different types of situations at home, personality factors such as enjoying risk-taking, peer pressure, really, really obvious one. Their friends are trying it, their friends are doing it, and they either think that it's cool or they want to say themselves, like, yeah, I've tried that thing. And previous exposure to alcohol. So maybe you know that they've tried it before, they're likely to want to try it again, regardless of how harsh you were with them the first time that they tried it, if it came to your attention. And so warning signs of things to look out for. Again, you'll be familiar with many of these. Changes in mood, including anger and irritability. And so a lot of the things on here, that it's not just your child coming home drunk, right? Because they could be out drinking, they could be at a friend's house, or they could say that they're at a friend's house. And so some of these warning signs, and again, they go for alcohol, but they can go for other risk behaviours as well. Academic or behavioural problems in school, rebelliousness, changing groups of friends, low energy levels, finding alcohol amongst your adolescent's belongings, smelling alcohol on their breath, pretty obvious one, problems concentrating or remembering, slurred speech, or concentration problems. Something you will also notice is with these things is that many of them are just behaviours of normal teenagers as well, okay? And so, again, it can be difficult to find the right balance between being wary and a healthy level of worry, and sort of being on your young people's backs for behaviours that are very normal, okay? I would say, again, a big thing to watch out for are just changes in behaviour. And I don't just mean the mood swings, because for your young person, mood swings might be normal, but it's about changes that you observe and you think, okay, that's out of the ordinary for my young person, okay? And so what can you do if you notice these things? So there are preventative things that you can do as families. Like I say, if I want you to take away one thing, it's about being open and honest, letting your children feel comfortable to come and have conversations with you, to ask difficult questions. If you don't know the answer to something, or you don't know how to approach an answer to something, maybe out of the blue they're asking you about drinking or about sex, or Mum, have you ever tried drugs? And like, maybe you have, right? And if you don't know how to approach an answer to a question, you can do what we're really good at teachers of doing, which is to say, oh, I wasn't expecting you to ask that. Let me go away and have a think about it, or let me go and find an answer, and then come back to them later on, okay? Try not to like jump down their throats because of something that they're saying, if they're asking something that makes you feel uncomfortable, because many things will make us as adults feel uncomfortable as well, okay? And so it's about making your young people feel that they're able to come and speak to you about things. Use phrases such as this one. So, I don't want you to drink, I don't want you to do X, Y, or Z, but if you were to do it, this is how you could approach it or could handle it, okay? And that way you're not condoning it, you're not encouraging it, but you're trying to give them safe options of how to approach things.
I just want to interrupt here to create an opportunity to reflect. Children are going to make mistakes. And we need to create safe spaces if we want them back home safe and alive, like I said at the beginning of this conversation. So sometimes having some sort of blank card, some sort of code, some sort of word that actually creates that opportunity. So Mom, code blue, or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, I don't know, whatever word you want to come up with, but that allows you to go pick up your child from a dangerous situation or where they are not feeling safe, so that they know that you're going to pick them up and you're not going to confront them or ask them 100 questions, because you're actually giving them permission to reach out to you. Because at the end, yes, you may be angry that they did something wrong, but you're going to be a lot angrier if something worse happens. And you're going to be a lot sadder if your child does not come home again. So it is a matter of understanding that these risk behaviors can either be an opportunity to learn from, or they can be also a very dangerous thing where you regret a lot of the situations that you do not face.
And you can have code words for them as well, right? Some of you are parents of younger adolescents. And we know in the world that we live in, there are all sorts of people out in the world that for financial gain and for other forms of gratification might want to try and contact your young person. And so have a code word with them where if they're unsure of who's contacting them, then have a code word set up as a family whereby your young person knows that it's definitely you, because you say that we're going to say pineapple or something else if you're not sure of who's contacting you, okay? So have these little things set up with your young people. Okay, specifically in relation to to underage drinking. Avoid normalising binge drinking. You know, it gets to a Friday and we're all stressed after work sometimes. But avoid normalising behaviours that could be damaging to your children. Model the behaviour that you want to see. Again, that's a really obvious one, but it's hard for our children to... It'll be hard for your children to take you seriously and hard for our students to take us seriously if we don't demonstrate the behaviour to them that we're expecting of them, okay? There are restorative things that we can do. So if you think that you know that your young person has been drinking or something else has been happening, you can work with school, you can reach out to us and we can offer you sort of judgment-free support. You know, don't think that we're going to go straight down the punitive route if we know that things are happening with your child that they shouldn't legally be doing at their age. We want to be able to help you and we want to be able to work with you. Similarly, if you know that something is happening outside of school or something has happened outside of school that involves other young people, reach out to their parents. And again, try and avoid the sort of moral outrage route of like, your child is a bad influence for my child and this has happened and that's happened and it's all your fault because your family is this, that or the other. Try and avoid that. The more that we can all work in partnership at a community, so that's you with your children, you with us, you with other parents and all combinations of those relationships, the better. And the same messages that we can be giving, the better as well. And then there are also reactive things that we can do that if there's an immediate or long-term problem. So we can seek immediate physical support from health professionals. And I mean, that might sound obvious, but it might not be that obvious if your young person has got into trouble whilst they've got injured whilst they're drinking or they're doing something else. You might be worried about seeking help for them, but it's really vital that we do. If there's some sort of physical thing that's happened, seek help for them immediately. Seek counselling support. So thankfully in society, we're moving away from there being stigma to people needing to support psychological or mental health help. But again, don't be afraid. It doesn't mean that somebody's mentally ill if they seek support from a psychologist. Okay, and also be open to family therapy. It doesn't mean that there's something inherently wrong about your family if you feel that all of you need to go to seek support. That's maybe something that there is still more stigma attached to, is a whole family going to a psychologist or to a counsellor or therapist to seek help. But it can be really helpful. Communication in the home can be a cause of a really surprising amount of psychological conditions or of things going wrong. And so going to seek help together, you can have a critical friend in a therapist that says, okay, maybe you've not noticed, but the way that you are all talking to each other is not conducive to a healthy family life, okay? And so don't be afraid to seek that sort of help as well. Okay. And I know what you're all thinking, but what are you going to do as a school? Well, we can do things as well. And again, there are preventative, restorative and reactive things that we can also do. So we can also have open and honest conversations with your children as part of PSHE lessons, but also about integrating conversations about risk behaviours into other lessons as well, into other parts of the week, such as through assemblies and flag raisings and other things. We can do the same as what you're hopefully going to do, which is, I don't want you to drink, but if you were to get into problems, you can do this, this and this. And again, we can also help you out by avoiding normalising things like binge drinking also. There are restorative things that we can do, such as safeguarding protocols. So if something comes to our attention, there are steps that we can follow to make sure that your child is safe. Because unfortunately, sometimes because of maybe your child lets something slip, maybe their friend comes to say something, sometimes there might be cases where we find out about this before you do. Okay, we don't want that, but it might be a reality. Okay, but with safeguarding protocols, we have to be dynamic if it's appropriate to do so, and we believe that it's safe to do so, which is 9 times out of 10. we will let you know. We will let you know straight away, and we will activate other protocols as well in school. Really vitally working in partnership with you and your young people. And then there are reactive, again, immediate or long-term problems. We can provide guidance and support, and we can provide internal support in school as well, if that's appropriate to do so. Angela.
Okay, so we've been hearing about risks. We've been hearing about the brain, how it's different. I want to talk about what's going on emotionally, what's going on in their psyche. And so adolescence is a transition, it's a process. It's when they arrive to a stage where they used to be children and now they're moving away from that. And that comes with movement, with lots of things that are quite confusing and quite stressful for them, okay? So they're leaving behind the childhood body, their childhood parents, and how they were relating with you. And that is difficult for them, okay? So they go between, I'm old, I need my space, but still I need my parents, okay? And that's very, very important for them. What happens? So lots of conflicts start up, and I'm talking about Oedipus complex, and it's beyond what we all have heard about liking the other parent and all that, and why this stage is so important, because it's where the moral conscience emerges. And what I'm talking about is they start knowing what's right and what's wrong. But when they get to adolescence, that starts again. And what happens, it's they go like, okay, I do these things at home, but my friends and some other people are doing different things outside. And that's a bit of a conflict for them as well. But as long as they know what you've taught, as they know their values, they'll be in a safer position where they can go like, okay, this is going to be okay for me, or this is not going to be okay for me, okay? So, as I'm saying, they're looking for their identity, where they fit in the more adult world. So, they're pushing boundaries, they want to be in the more adult world, and so they'll be taking risks. And with risks, I'm not saying it's difficult behavior, but they're trying to go out of their comfort zone a bit and be a bit more autonomous. And so sometimes, because of what Mr. Joe was sharing, because of their brains are so immature still, they can make mistakes and they can get into difficult positions and moments, okay? And as well, they're trying to assert themselves in their peer group. And with this, they're going to take certain risks that sometimes are not well seen by their peers or by their parents, okay? And then when we get to alcohol consumption, sometimes what happens, and that's what Mr. Regan was talking about, it can be risky. Why? Because sometimes, because of genetics or other things that start emerging in adolescence, it could be difficult. It could be a function of emotional anesthesia, so it's easier to avoid certain things with alcohol, and that's when it can become a risky behavior. Or it's easier for me to dance, or it's easier for me to talk to others when I'm drinking alcohol, okay? And that would be a red flag as well, okay? Or when they're in a very fragile position and they go like, okay, I don't want to feel this way anymore, and that's another red flag, and that's when intervention must take place, okay? And so, because they're growing up and they're distancing from you as parents, it could be a bit of a transitional period as well, where they start drinking to overcome certain things that they can find a bit difficult to face, okay? What can you as parents do? So it's important always be present. Sometimes it's difficult. There'll be a lot of door slamming, lots of I hate you, lots of leave me alone, but they need you there. They do need you there. And yeah, always leave open doors, always keep your distance in a kind way, but continue being present, okay? It's very important to set more boundaries clearer, but as well to re-talk about them. So sit as a family and discuss. So when you were younger, curfew time was, I don't know, 7 p.m. Maybe it's time to talk about 10 p.m. But you need to be here, or I'll pick you up there, but you need to be there, okay? So it's as well time to balance things, time to talk about things. If you don't talk about things, it's going to be a bit more difficult. It's so important to open conversations and really listen, really not judge, but listen, be present, be interested in what they're doing, be there to maybe give an opinion when they're asked
Can I add
an
something there?
opinion.
Your faces speak as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just being there, but it's like, you know, if you're terrified by the answer, grossed out, or anything, your faces speak. So try and neutralize that as well, because that's difficult, but they are receiving. Body language is there.
It's true, that's true. And as well, your role models. You're their first role model. Of course, they're trying to move away from you because it's live, it's normal, but that's scary as well.
Okay, I asked maybe some of your young people, maybe not, they're anonymous, so I'm not going to tell you whether any of them are the children of the people here in the room or people online. But I asked for some quotes, either sort of advice to other teenagers about how to approach risk behaviours, or advice for parents.
Yeah. Oh, we need to.
Actually, translator, okay. Right. Dramatic pause.
So if anybody at home is hearing us and they want to send a question, please make sure that you put it in the chat room, and we'll try and answer it at the end of the conversation.
Okay. And so here are some of the quotes. If you're interested in trying those things, it's good to be able to talk to your parents so that they can guide you. This allows you to do things safely and in a protected way. Know your limits. Sometimes when you're around other people who are influencing you, they might push you to do things you aren't ready for and don't want to do. People who are truly your friends will respect your boundaries. Focus on having fun and not the fact that you've done a thing. Do things for yourself and not for the anecdote. Teenagers need to feel like they can come to you about things like that. They want to be able to feel comfortable in talking about it without judgment. I like this one. Don't encourage things to the point that it's weird. And then when Joey and Angela and I were looking at these quotes yesterday, we wanted to put the one that I'm about to show last because we think that it's a really simple but powerful and effective message. Keep the door open for your kids. Keep the door open for your kids.
That is a strong message, because sometimes, like I said, you're not going to like what your kids are doing or what they're doing, but keep that open. So before we go into the video that we're going to show, I want to just address some of the questions that you have asked us, and I will ask you some of the questions that we've asked. But I will start with the following premise.
No pressure.
Your children have friends. They don't need more. You're not their friend, not at least until they're older. The cell phone that you pay is yours. The plan is yours. The right to privacy, it's a discussion to be had. Okay, so those things are above safety, and health are above anything else. So, Jamie, how could we handle when our children are being spectators of something and they don't want to become at risk? How can we communicate with the school regarding that? They're watching something, whether it be bullying or drinking or anything. How could they reach out to the school and not make it that their child is exposed to that situation?
Yeah, I mean, let us know about it. When parents, families, or students ask to remain confidential or anonymous about the situation, we do our best to respect that. We have ways of approaching students that are involved in risk behaviours or involved in something negative happening. And we do our best to speak to them in a way that doesn't expose the person that has given us that information. I'm not going to say what the things are because this has been recorded. So.
There's a safeguarding.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, and if it's a safeguarding issue, we have the safeguarding protocols can be completed by parents as well. If you go onto the school website and you find the safeguarding section of the school website, even if you type into Google, Colegio Gran Bretaña safeguarding, a web page will come up and you can submit your own safeguarding concern if you have one.
And it's anonymous and we won't ask you any further questions. So how do you address genetic factors when you don't know who the parent was? It's your child.
That's tricky. That's really tricky, and that's why it's so important to just support your children and guide them into making good decisions, and you as parents being role models is the best way. How can you sometimes confront what they're doing when they're seeing it at home as well? So to avoid genetics which are very hard to see unless you test or until you actually see happening. Yeah, that's very hard. It's kind of impossible to answer.
Yeah, the answer is that you can't. You can't. You can't do that, but it's one risk factor.
Yeah.
Other risk factors are things that are happening at home. The role of peers is massive. Sometimes you might think that your young person is a little angel, and then they get to 16 years old or 17 years old, and then all of a sudden they want to try these things. And so they are without their risk factors, okay? And so risk factors mean that it's something that increases the likelihood of something happening. It doesn't mean that if there's a family history of something happening that it will definitely happen to your child. It also doesn't mean that if there is no family history that it's not going to happen to your child. There's a whole raft of things that can or cannot sometimes happen in order to cause these things.
So here is an important question that says, how do you handle the fact that you know that other families are offering alcohol and you don't want that to happen to your child because they're under 18? And it comes to a couple of factors. The factor is that number one, you're a parent. When you decided to be a parent, you're a parent. You are not there to be liked all the time. That's not your role. So if you have to reach out to talk to other parents and say, what is this party going to look like? Who is going to be in charge of this? Who is going to be looking after this? Can you tell me that there's no alcohol going to be involved? It's a right. You have the right because these are your children. And you have the right to send them to a safe environment and to people that align with the values that you share. And if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel safe, if there's something here that doesn't feel right, don't do it. Don't do it.
But as well, talk to your children. Like, make sure they know your limits. Like, I will not allow this. And same in your house. Like, in this house, this will not be allowed. And empower your child when they have friends over as well to let them know that, like, what's allowed or not allowed in your house. It's your house. And the same goes the other way. Like, you're not supposed to do certain things in other places, okay? So have that conversation. It's open. Mm-hmm.
So parents are asking if we could have like a word or a code for kids, for us, if they want to talk to us. Do you think that's
at school? Sure. Again, there's an email and there's the safeguarding email. They can always send a message there. But as well, we could, why not, create a word for support.
Yep. So, Jamie, what does the school do if something illegal happens out of the ground of the school?
So we still have a responsibility as a school to follow up with things that happen outside of school. There can be like grey areas in school policies, but it's also part of the philosophy that we have as a school, that we want to support the decisions that our students are making outside of the school grounds as well. And so, again, if something concerning is happening that you know about, that you want to tell us about, you can always let us know about that as well. If situations come to our attention, then again we have safeguarding protocols and legal protocols to follow depending on what the situation is as well. But we do care, we do genuinely care about things that happen outside of the school grounds as well.
Yeah. And if there are legal things, of course, we activate protocols that we have to as well as a school in Colombia. So we need to report. If we need to include police, adolescent police, then that can be included as well.
I'm going to mix two questions here because there's basically the same answer. And one says, how can the school help us prevent consumption? And then the other one is basically, how can we help our children understand what is legal and illegal? And it comes to communication at the end of the day and actually explaining things. Because if your child wants to do something, usually they can. I mean, they'll find a space to do whatever it is and they'll find the way to do it. There's no way to really prevent things except having conversations. You can, if you want, if your parent smokes and you sneak out a cigarette, you're going to do it and that's going to happen. But also, I'd also be careful with the amount of money that you're giving your children and actually having them give you a report on what they're spending the money, because that is a way to track where the money goes. Sometimes you have things like apps that you can order cigarettes and alcohol, even if you're, they just say, are you over 21 or over 18 or whatever it is, but it's not like they're checking. It is not up to the apps to educate. That is our job together. So we need to do that together. So yep. The offers are out there. We just need to actually do something about it by talking to them about it, because it's still going to be available.
And we do cover these topics in PSHE as well. We give them lessons about addiction, alcohol, legal and illegal drugs. So they are topics that we can cover, that we do cover, sorry.
How can we basically communicate to the school that there's something like selling or providing? Well, there's the safeguarding page that Jamie already mentioned, so I think that's covered there. How can we help our children differentiate between safe consumption and non-safe consumption? I will say something. If they're children and they're underage, it's always unsafe consumption. I'm sorry, that's not negotiable. Maybe it's controversial what I'm saying, but it's not. I don't know if you want to add something to that.
It might be controversial with them, but adults, we should know it should not happen. It should not be given. It should not be provided. We should be responsible enough to know that if they go to a shop, they shouldn't be allowed to receive alcohol. In our houses, we should not be providing alcohol to underage children. It's not okay. Controversial, yeah, because students will push limits. They're trying new things, but as well, they should be knowing what's legal, illegal, what's right and wrong, to finally arrive into a space where they're responsible adults making the best decisions for them.
So we're going to go with a question for Jamie, then I'll finalize with a question, and then we'll sort of finish this round. So Jamie, they're asking us if, basically, if we know that a child has done something illegal outside of school, do we reach out to parents?
It depends on the circumstance. When we receive a safeguarding report, we have to deal with every case in a dynamic way, because every young person is different and every family dynamic is different. The likelihood is that we would tell parents about it, but there could be like some very specific circumstances where that wouldn't be the case. Not because we're trying to hide things from families, but because informing parents could cause harm to a child. So very extreme circumstances that would be very, very unlikely. And so the vast majority of situations mean that we would reach out to parents, parents or guardians, and we have to take safeguarding protocols, but also like Colombian legislation really, really seriously, because we want to make sure that our young people are safe. The other sort of organisation or protocol that we have to follow, there's something called Sistema Alertas in Colombia, which is like a platform that we report any sort of serious well-being concerns to. That doesn't necessarily mean that you know the police are going to be notified about things, but it's to notice. They might be, yeah, but depend on the situation.
Yeah.
But it's to notice patterns or large concerns that that can damage the safety of a young person. So, yes, to summarise that quite long answer, the vast majority of circumstances, parents will be notified about that, yes.
So the final question that I'm going to answer, and it can actually become one of the next CGB talks that we actually do, talks about responsibility and finance. Okay, so somebody is asking me, is there a suggested amount of money to give them? I have no idea how to answer that question, but I will say, if a child has their room and they're cleaning the room, there's no money for that. That is a responsibility that they have at home. Of course, we invite you to give them money and teach them how to use it appropriately, and you monitoring what the expenses are. But, you know, everybody has a role and responsibility in the home, and becoming part of the home. We do not pay people for homework, and this is something that I've had. We do not pay them because they're walking the dog. No, that is something that we want. If we want responsible children, we need to give them opportunities to be responsible. But if we're rewarding them with money, that's the expectation, and that will grow into, okay, then it's a cell phone, and then it's a car, and then it's no limits behind that. So money is a tricky thing. I know it will vary from family to family, but I think this is an interesting topic for a further conversation, because children as young as 3 can take their plate to the sink. I want to thank everybody that came in. I want to thank everybody that connected from home. This is a really first experience. I hope you'll forgive any mistakes that we've done across the way. I want to thank you guys for participating in this event, and I hope that we can have much more of this, and maybe we'll have more people coming in. Thank you very much.